Also have my special guest here, Steve. You could check us out on YouTube at Overly Misguided and on Instagram at overly_misguided. We are also on Spotify and Apple Music, Overly Misguided. And I apologize for the noise. They're doing renovations. I promise it will not be in the next episode. And yeah. Oh, and check us out. We are brought to you by Rise Network, and I'm very appreciative and thankful for the opportunity for joining this network. And check us out on their website, www.risenetwork.com. Welcome to the first official episode of Overly Misguided, where I have my special guest today, Steve. We were supposed to have a couple other people, but they didn't show up, and I appreciate you being here and showing up.
Well, I appreciate that you invited me to come in.
Thank you for coming. This just goes to show that you can't always depend on people, so remember that, people. All right, so today we're going to be doing part 2 of misogyny versus masculinity versus femininity. This is part 2. We're kind of going to go into depth, and I'm going to kind of go through some questions with you. How does it feel to be a man in 2021?
Well, I can't say it felt any different last 20 years. Anything different, I wouldn't say too much. You kind of, you're just growing up, becoming an adult. Nothing new, really. 2021, hopefully it was going to be better than 2020.
Hopefully. I mean, this last past year has been crazy.
Oh,
the whole COVID and people missing out on opportunities and stuff like that. It's just insane. By what I meant to say, like, to break that down further, like, do you feel like now, like, with how social media is and the internet, like, it kind of forces you to kind of mute your thoughts and your feelings towards certain things?
I would say yes to a point. I mean, so much has changed in the last, we've been around for 28 years, 27. And like we went from very, very, very still racially tense 90s, still very sexualized,
Mm-hmm.
gotten to a point where I think in this world, both men and women can be comfortable in their sexuality. Obviously, you still got areas where there's people that are extremely, I would say, conservative and far right in their thinking.
Yes.
You got folks that, like, I'm sure there's places still in this country where they would have a problem with just a white man and a black woman, or a black woman and a black man and a white woman getting married or having kids, anything like that. I think too, especially, I mean, it's only been 10 years since the whole same-sex marriage court ruling for this country,
Mm-hmm.
as well as really the rest of the world. Like, that's really new concept for and it might not seem like that for people that are Generation Z, but when you were growing up, like, for us, that was the end of high school when they finally said there's no problem in this country of having a civil union between a woman and a man and a man. Like, that was very revolutionary. So I would say, though, being a man in this country, you start to think and look at the world a little bit more differently than maybe men in past generations. Mm-hmm. You got, like, for instance, all right, we're going to continue with the change. For instance, I think it was last year now, women have to register for the selective service draft. For a long time as a man, like, when I applied for financial aid, and most men didn't know this at first, if you're not signed up for selective service, you ain't getting anything.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's part of the requirements for financial aid. So if you want to go to school, you got to be signed up for the draft.
I don't think we'll have a draft anytime soon. I hope not. I don't want to
hopefully
lose anybody that I love or anything. But
exactly.
That was really good, all that. I liked that. Let's get into some relationship stuff.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so like, in my past experience, like, with relationships with guys and stuff like that, I always felt like obligated to have sex with my partner, and like almost like he had an entitlement to my body. And obviously now, and like maturing and growing up, I realized, like, no, like, sex really obviously has to be consensual. But
of course,
I've been in relationships where, like, the guy, like, we had to have sex. Even if I'm not in the mood, I don't want to, it's like, we're having sex. Like, how do you feel about that?
Personally, it's one of those things where it's like, I think I come from more of a traditional conservative family background. I'm just going to say that right out there. And I don't think it was really ever discussed in my house, at least. Maybe it's because I'm a guy growing up kind of thing, but it was not like I was never taught by someone that because you're the man, the woman has to put up. If anything, I was kind of given more of the impression by especially my peers, if she isn't willing to give up, there's something wrong. Like either she is not into you, which is like the big thing. Like everyone wants to joke about with guys, like, what are you doing wrong? Like, obviously you might not have the largest appendage downstairs. Maybe you don't have the most attractive voice. Maybe you ain't bringing out money. Like that's the first thing everyone kind of goes with. But I think as I've grown up, it's been more along the lines of, well, maybe it's not necessarily all on me. Maybe she's just not in the mood. Maybe there's something going on that we can address together and I can help her out, get through it. And I'm not saying every woman out there needs some guy to come save the day, but if I can be there to back her up, cool.
Steven, I wish more men were like you. Yes. I wish that some guys would understand, like, it's not you, like, it's me. I'm just not in the mood. Like, don't force sex where it's, like, not.
Exactly.
Because then I'm going to have a weird resentment towards you, and, like, I'm going to think of sex with you as a negative thing. Like, I don't want that.
Oh, yeah. And you can see it, like, it happens all the time in relationships. The girl will feel very pressured. The guy will be like, well, I guess maybe she's just not into me. Maybe she doesn't love me anymore. Like, and instantly it starts falling apart. And I think it happens with the opposite, like vice versa for girls and for guys. Like there's times where I've met guys that they're like, I'm just exhausted from work and I feel so much pressure from my wife trying to figure out, like she thinks I'm saying something that I'm not trying to communicate. Like I'm just tired. And she's like, well, why can't I just do my thing for you? Like make you feel special. And sometimes he's just like, I'm just way too tired right now. I just want to go to bed. I just came off a 12-hour shift. And I think in that case, it's more of a situational thing, especially like, and I think men have to understand this too. Women's bodies are very different from ours when it comes to the cycle. There's going to be times your girl cannot like have sex with you just because it's either going to be too painful for her, uncomfortable. There's a lot of girls out there still, like I know you see it like commercials where it's starting to become more comfortable talking about their periods and all that, but some girls out there still are very uncomfortable talking about that. That's a part of their body that in their eyes isn't beautiful. It isn't like,
it's not like a happy time of like the month. Like speaking of that, next week, that's where I'm going to be on my period. Sorry guys, like TMI, but I know I'm going to be uncomfortable that entire week. Like I'm going to be bloated. I'm going to feel gross. Like I'm not going to be happy. Like I'm probably going to be a bitch. Not going to lie. Like my hormones are changing. All this like stuff is happening. So it's like, it's a whole different system than men.
Exactly. And it's turned into, I think it's a tool that some people will use as an excuse to like, I don't want to jump off the deep end here. Maybe I should save this for a little bit later, but I think some people use it as a tool to break up with their significant other. Like the guy will be like, oh, she doesn't want to have sex with me. And I think there's a lot of people out there too, women-wise, that they're afraid to break it off, but they're just not attracted to him. Like they've been with him for a few weeks, months, years, and they're comfortable with where they're at, but they're terrified of what will happen next if the two of them aren't together. So they'll use that as keep the relationship alive. They're terrified of what might happen next, you know, especially if and then another thing that comes into mind, if you have children, like you start wondering, I don't really love this guy. Like as much as he in the beginning might have came off as a sweet dude, sweetness melts away and relationships are work. So if the guy isn't pulling his part of the, are we good? Sorry.
Okay.
I keep hearing myself cutting.
I hear it too. Okay.
So the guy has to carry his own weight as a father, like just as a parent in general. They have to be there, you know, like, okay, fine if you're working a ton of hours and such, but you also have to be more understanding to your wife, to the mother of your kids. Like maybe if you're not married, maybe you're just boyfriend, girlfriend, but you got to realize that she's carrying a lot of weight herself.
Yeah.
I think a lot of things that, and I'll say this, I think more men are becoming more understanding and more empathetic towards ladies, because especially if you come from a quote unquote traditional household, the man's out making all the money, but the woman's home, like working. She has to deal with everything from the kids just needing to get to school to she has to do all the chores to then if something happens, God forbid, like one of the kids gets hurt or she gets sick, like the whole schedule throws off. And that's a lot of pressure to put on one person.
Plus your finances, let's say your finances aren't in line, like stress, money, like that's going to put a lot in your relationship. And going back, remember that conversation, it was me, you, and Justin, and we were talking about this type of stuff. When we were kind of talking about, gender roles and stuff like that, I was honestly shocked about Justin's answers. I mean, I was obviously proud, yes, like.
I guess to go into it for your viewers, Justin used to be a 5-star chef, and he walked away from it because, one, it was getting kind of stressful, and he didn't like how the restaurant was being ran, but two, his wife finished school, and she was going to be running a catering business as the manager, and he stepped away because he wanted to be more involved with his kids. He wanted to support her in that route because that's what she really wanted to do. And let me tell you, the guy, you would never have guessed it, covered in tattoos and such, but one of the nicest dudes out there.
Sweetest.
Awesome father.
And I think that's the best example of like that compromise in a relationship, knowing like I have to make this sacrifice. Like if this is going to make my wife happy and I get to spend more time with my kids, like this is the best way to go. Like that's a beautiful thing.
And it's a lot situational. Like coming from my own background, my father, my mother, like, my dad worked kind of thing, but it was all situational. By the time I was coming around, my mom didn't work a job that provided health insurance. My dad did, and obviously he wanted to make sure his kids could go see a doctor, so they sat down and discussed where were they financially, realistically, who could handle the money and all that kind of thing with bringing it in, and that was put on him. So what ended up happening, he drove an hour to Detroit every day for the last 25 years, drove back, just so that way he could provide money and provide insurance for his family, really.
It's beautiful.
And that's still, like, there's a lot of pressure that was put on my mom. My mom, then she handled a lot. Like, when they came into their marriage, they had already had 2 failed marriages. My dad had a wife that did not love him, and my mom had a husband that certainly did not love her. So they also had kids, and so while he's at work, she had to help out with not only her own children, but also his kids too, and do the best that she could. And that's a lot of pressure to put on one person, especially if they're coming from a family of 1 kid to now she had a family of 4.
Wow.
So
kudos to your parents though for like being able to be mature enough to like figure that out.
I wish, honestly, as a kid, you grow up as a teenager, you're always rebellious and such. I wish I could have appreciated them more sooner.
Yes. Appreciate your parents, guys, because you don't know how long you're going to have them.
Exactly.
So, back to the questions. In a relationship, do you feel like it is right for a guy to be able to control what his girlfriend or woman wears?
All right, I'm going to go off the deep end here. I think everything's situational. There's some ladies out there that get off by a super controlling guy, and there are some guys out there that love to be dominated by a super powerful woman. Do I think it's right? I think everyone has to be honest with their partner. If your man is very domineering on you and he's not willing to restrain himself for your sake, then you're in a toxic relationship.
I agree.
If your lady is dominating every aspect of your life, telling you you can't go see your friends or something like that, then you're in a toxic relationship. Mind you, it depends. Like, I say that's a very broad topic
It is a very broad statement to make, but I can agree with that. I had an ex who would go out with his friends, and at the time I was not old enough, so I couldn't go. And
Yeah.
I understood, but I would try to like weasel my way in there. Oh, if they're hanging out with the boys at the house, you know, and they're bringing their girlfriends, why can't I come? I thought that was kind of suspect. Like, if there's house gatherings and you guys aren't going out to the club or anything, why can't I tag along?
Exactly. I dated a girl for a year and a half. She was 4 years older than me. And let me tell you, she controlled everything. I didn't dress cool enough for her. I didn't sound cool enough. I had to deepen my voice.
Okay, she sounds like a bitch. I'm sorry, but she's a bitch.
Let me tell you, one of the first like couple months of us dating, I wrote her a song, right? And mind you, I don't
Steve
think
plays the guitar, everyone.
I'm not that great at it. And you want to know what she told me?
What?
She told me, "You suck." That was the first words out of her mouth, and she laughed.
That's
Like,
fucking awful.
here I am in front of her coworkers playing guitar and singing for her after bringing her flowers and all that. Oh, man, I was like a Casanova back in the day, and that destroyed whatever confidence I had.
Please tell me you broke up with her after that.
I wish I could tell you that.
Steve.
I was she was first off, she was my first girlfriend.
Oh, so it was like that first love.
Oh, yeah. I was head over heels over her, and she knew exactly how she could make me the perfect boyfriend in her eyes. And
Manipulation.
And so I'd say when it comes to relationships, it seems like there's two ways most common ways for it to be toxic. For women, it's the guy is extremely domineering, constantly wanting sex and all that. And for the girl, it seems like she's very controlling when it comes to clothing and such, more like treating the guy like an accessory than a boyfriend or husband, if that makes sense.
Just to have that title. Oh, I have a boyfriend.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, hell, I had friends telling me, dude, this is not going to work out. Funny story, I invited my friend over to hang out with us once, and the very next day, mind you, she was very Christian. She didn't want to have sex or anything like that, which I can totally respect. Like, everyone has their principles and ideals, and I was willing to like just leave it at that.
Good man.
The very next day she met my friend, she told me she had adulterous thoughts with him, and I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to feel about that? She thought, I just wanted to be honest to you. And I'm like, I'm happy you're being honest, but there's some things that maybe you should be honest with your friends about and not with me.
Wow. Do you still talk to this girl? Wait, no, I forgot.
No. We broke up years ago, and I'm engaged to one of the most amazing women on the planet.
She is amazing. I've met her before. Wow, that's insane. Like, I've been to some relationships where like what I could wear was controlled, and yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, did I take it overboard? Yes, I did sometimes. But I feel like if I'm just wearing like skinny jeans and a shirt, and you're upset that I'm wearing jeans that are tight, or if I'm showing my shoulders, you're doing way too much.
Yeah, honestly, like, and that's a difficult subject to really talk about when it comes to being a guy, because you know there's guys out there looking at her, but at the same time, she's with you for a reason.
Exactly. So it's like, if we don't have trust, then what do we have?
You have nothing. Your relationship isn't built on a single thing.
No, it's not.
It's sand. It's going to collapse.
Bingo. I think that within a relationship, obviously, like, there needs to be trust, and like trust that I'm wearing these clothes. Yes, other men might look, yes, but like you said, at the end of the day, I'm coming home to you. Exactly. I'm loyal to you.
Exactly. And honestly, if she's willing to tell you where she's going, who she's hanging out with, do you really have anything to be afraid of?
Exactly.
If you are afraid of something, either something happened in the past that the two of you are supposed to be working on, or your guys' relationship sucks.
Ooh, I got a good one.
Okay, let's
So, do you think that, okay, let's say someone cheats in a relationship. Do you think it could work after that?
It honestly depends on the people.
Okay.
Like, there are people out there that are extremely strong, extremely forgiving. But at the same time, you have to also look at it in this light. There are some people out there that will not change. And you cannot blame yourself for the actions they commit.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of young ladies I've met out there that the guy has cheated on them 6-7 times. He's told them at least, but at the same time, if you're not okay with him leaving you for other women, then it's time for you to leave and find yourself a real man.
Yeah. I agree. It's like, for me, I mean, have I been cheated on? Yes. And there's been times where I've been cheated on and I didn't find out till after the relationship was over. And it hurts because it's like, you know, if I'm in a relationship with that person and, you know, I'm assuming you love me, it's like, you know, that if I found out that you cheated, what kind of hurt and pain that's going to put me through as someone who loves you and you love me, quote unquote. And that is such a shitty feeling to like have someone like step out on you. And like, it makes you question yourself and your self-worth and think, you know what, is there something wrong with me? Like, did I do something wrong? Like, am I not good enough? Did I not meet the standards that you needed? You needed someone else. And it's like, why can't you just break up with me and then go fuck other people? Yeah. Like, you can't have both.
Exactly. And there's a lot of people out there that want to have both, but there's people out there that don't.
Wait, which one is it?
Polyamorous.
Yeah, do that.
There's people out there willing to do that. And personally, I'm a selfish guy, I guess, when it comes to that, because I don't want to share whoever I'm with.
I feel that.
When it comes to relationship stuff, if they want to have another side hustle, I'm sorry, like, we just won't work out. Like,
no, I agree. Like, I'm a very jealous person when it comes to being in a relationship. Like, I'm yours, you're mine. We're not sharing. That's how it goes. Okay, so let's...
Plus, you know, with the STD rate in this country, like, I know some people don't care, but it's like, I don't want to wake up one day and find out I got something because you decided to sleep around.
Literally. STDs aren't fun, people. I personally have never gotten an STD. I don't know why I'm saying that.
Amen.
I know people have, and that stuff is serious, especially if you don't get it checked out. Please go get checked if you're sexually active. Go out there. Go to Planned Parenthood or whatever doctor or hospital.
If you live in the Oakland County area, you can go to the Oakland County Health Center.
There you go. Go get your test done.
All free, by the way. So if you're afraid of money, nope.
Wait, do they need insurance? Because I know some places make you show like your insurance card.
Some places do, but last I checked, because I had a friend that went there, they didn't ask him for any insurance proof or something when he went to Oakland County.
Okay, well,
so
that's good.
Check with your local county. They might provide that.
Okay, so I have another question. Okay. Why do guys go after girls with the intentions of not being with them just so they could smash? They fake like her for a period of time to get what they want and then dip. Like, is it like a ego stroke type thing? Like, what do you gain from this?
I think it's a huge problem for our society in general. I recently went to Las Vegas, and let me tell you, I loved my trip. But the first thing I saw there was slot machines everywhere and people essentially advertising that they want to just hook up for quick cash kind of thing.
So prostitution.
Prostitution it was.
I'm smiling.
And I think society-wise, we've gotten to a point where we don't just objectify looking at cars. We don't just objectify looking at alcohol or anything like that and knowing, oh, this will make me feel good. Mm-hmm. We objectify each other very hardcore, and to the point where we don't even objectify them as in, oh, she's hot. Or he's looking pretty damn good.
Yeah.
We objectify them to the point where, you know what, I just want 1 hour with them. You're objectifying the time, the gratification that they're going to give you, instead of looking at it and realizing that's a human being.
That's a really good point. That's really messed up. Like, our society has really dwindled down to that.
And I would argue, especially for guys, it's turned into this thing, and it's probably been around longer than you and I have been alive, certainly, probably way past the sexual revolution of the 60s and past even America being a country. It's been around for decades, centuries, millennia, whatever you want to say. But you got people out there that literally just want to say, I banged that chick.
Yeah.
I got with her. We had sex. Look at me. Isn't that awesome?
It's like, do you want a cookie?
Especially, I think it too, like, you got ugly bastards out there that just have a ton of money. And so can be like, you know what? No woman in her right mind would want to be with me, but I could toss enough cash and she would.
Yeah. We got a sugar daddy epidemic going on right now. I'm currently looking for one. I'm just joking. I'm not looking for one.
I was going to say, I wish I could help you out there, but I don't know anyone.
But it's just sad that, I mean, women use men too. I'm not going to lie. Have I been guilty of using guys for food? Yes, I have. And dates and just like free stuff. But Yeah, I'm not gonna be one-sided. Yes, it goes both ways. Men use women, women use men.
It turns into that accessory thing. Like, you start objectifying someone, like, and I'm not saying you did this. I'm going back to like the toxic relationships. Women, I think, when it comes to being a toxic girlfriend or wife, they'll use their husband, boyfriend as a way of, hey, look at what I got. He brings home all the cash. I don't have to do anything. Like,
They use that as a flex. Like, I don't have to work. He pays for my stuff. Which, I mean, go ahead if that's you.
yeah,
That's you.
Like, I'm not here to rip on anyone. If that's how you want to live your life, live your life to the fullest. But I just personally, I find meaning in doing work. So
No, I feel that 100%.
and I'm not saying they didn't work to get what they had when they did that. I know there's a lot of women out there that struggle every day doing sex industry like crazy. And I feel for them. They have to deal with all sorts of people. Trust me, being in Sin City, I got to see the good side and I got to see the bad
sin
side.
in the city.
Oh, yeah, there's a reason for that big S.
That was good. So another thing I kind of want to go into is incels. Incel, if you don't know what that is, it's a small group of men on the internet who literally hate women but feel an entitlement over them to the point where like they wish death upon them, but they want them, but they can't have them in a sexual way.
Incels are very interesting, and I would say they're a product of the internet.
Yeah.
You got guys that feel that, and I think a big part of it is the pornography problem of, and I'm not saying pornography is necessarily a problem, but let's face it, you can get addicted to anything, and these guys are addicted to the fact that they can just pull out their phone, whip out their dick, and get gratification without having to talk to a lady, without having to pay for drinks. And once that gets old, once that's done, dead in the water because they can't feel anything anymore, they think, oh, well, I can go out into public and expect that these girls will act the exact same way just because I'm a nice guy. And that's the thing they throw out all the time. There's subreddits about it, YouTube videos making fun of it, of the nice guy trope.
Yep. I think the guys who claim to be nice guys, like, oh, I'm a nice guy, I think they're honestly the worst kind. Because it's like they're nice until they don't get what they want. Exactly. And then that's when it's, you're the problem. You're the bitch. You're the cunt. I don't know if I was supposed to say cunt. But you end up being the problem. And that's how, you know, like the internet like shapes your mind so much because they have watched all this porn and gotten so numb to the point where they think, oh, I can go out and this is how it's actually going to be.
Exactly.
Like,
they become so indicted with it. So mindset gets completely warped that they think if I just go to a bar and offer to buy a girl a drink and she accepts it, instantly that means we're going home, we're hooking up. Instead of being like, you know what, I got to be more realistic here.
Exactly.
Like, that's not how the world works. And you could you could jump off from that point to even how our movies are portrayed. Like, look how many times, especially early 2000s, you got all the guy flicks kind of thing. Like Adam Sandler, I love him to death. But a lot of his movies kind of were like this, where the women would instantly jump in the guy's pants, or the funny comedy thing would be she plays hard to get. And so the guy just confidently, constantly badgering her, constantly going for her kind of thing. And some women like that. There's a lot that don't, and there's a lot that see that as sexual harassing.
Yes.
And just harassing them in general.
I, for one, see that as harassment because it's like if I'm at a bar and you buy me a drink, thank you, I appreciate the drink. We can have a little conversation, but if you're trying to go at something and I physically, like, I'm telling you no, like, I'm not interested, and you keep going, what is wrong with you?
No.
No means no. I don't think you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth. Like,
Exactly.
we're not doing this.
Exactly. There's some guys too. It's like you hear the phrase phantom laughter for like stand-up comedy, that these people think they're so funny, but the whole audience could be completely quiet, but they're hearing laughter in their head kind of thing. And I think these guys, they hear in their mind, yes, they've heard it so much through pornography, through movies, through video games, through jokes with their friends, all these yeses. And then when they finally get told no, they have no idea how to handle it.
Yes.
And I don't want to blame baby boomers for this, but especially our generation, we were given a lot more than they were, to the point where no was very rarely used.
Yes. I just think it's because with the internet nowadays, we have easy access to really anything. You could literally lay in your bed and go grocery shopping and have it show up at your door. Anything.
You can go further than that. I know people that have become software engineers just studying coding by themselves in their room for a few months and then get paid a $90,000 job
That's
afterwards.
insane.
You can literally do almost anything with the internet. Elon Musk said there's a lot of people out there like, I can't wait before I get like cybernetic arms and such, things like that. Elon Musk is already like, you are a cyborg.
Yeah.
You got a phone in your pocket. That's a small computer. 20
that
years ago, that's
everything
magic.
that you do. Like, tell me why I went out to eat like a couple days ago, and then like I get back home, it's like, so how was your food? Like telling me like to give a review. I'm like,
it's so annoying.
Weird.
Like working in retail,
Yeah.
I go to work every day with stupid Google telling me, how was your visit after 8 hours?
I'm like, you know I work here.
Exactly.
Don't ask me stupid questions. All right. Does body count matter? I know there's a pretty big double standard when it comes to guys having a high body count. Girls are not supposed to have a high body count. You're supposed to be this innocent little princess that...
I've met guys that go either way, honestly. There are guys out there, as they would say, I want a freak in the sheet. And then there's guys that want that little timid, traditional housewife.
And that's where the dominant and submissive thing kind of plays in.
So I've met guys that they get called by their girlfriend daddy. I've met girls who want to be called kitten by their boyfriend. I've met the opposite. I've met guys that call their sugar mama mommy, and I've seen girls that call their child their little puppy, or their boyfriend little puppy. And usually there's
the puppy, the dog cat thing. The kitten thing I've heard, but the dog, like,
oh yeah, I think it's mostly they're trying, like, a lot of times it seems to be very powerful women, and when I say power, I mean these were the girls that were not told no when it came to going through college. They went full force into it. They either did a STEM field or whatever, they're making bank, and now they want to reap the rewards, and they know the best way to do it is to find a young man that's willing to do whatever they want.
Just a pawn, just to
have
that in your hand.
Exactly.
That's insane. Now, to go back on like the dominant and submissive part, I feel like nowadays, guys are becoming more okay with women being more dominant in like, sexual way. But I feel like when it comes to like the workspace and being like women being more independent, guys don't like that.
I think it depends on the guy especially, and I think it's starting to change. For instance, 30 years ago, like almost 30 years ago for us, we weren't around 30 years ago, but you had a lot more men higher up in executive positions than you do today. And I think a lot of that had to do with, for instance, you had like up until like the 30s and 20s here in America, there were no women in the workplace. And when there were, they played very, very small roles. They were either the secretary, and it's not to demonize them or anything like that, or bring them down, but they were very small roles in the workplace. They were secretaries. They weren't expected to do anything that wasn't essentially just paper pushing and stuff like that, which is a real shame, because at the same time you had ladies like Madame Curie who worked her ass off to put her three kid siblings through school, and then went through school herself and won 2 Nobel Peace Prizes.
Wow.
Or 2 Nobel Prizes for science and her contributions into physics and all that, which, going back to what we were talking about, it wasn't really until I would say the 50s and especially the 60s where it started to become more of a place where you would see ladies in the workforce. And I think a big product of that was the 40s, World War II. All the men got drafted. So now you have a lot of ladies being Rosie Riveters, working on the supply chain and all that, working on the assembly line, building stuff, doing things that women weren't ever thought of being capable of doing. And here they are doing it. I don't think we celebrate that enough personally in history when they talk about Women's History Month. That's something that should be pushed. Now, where I'm going with that is that kind of planted the seed of having more women in the workforce, but then ladies started going to college more. Colleges started opening their door to not just men, but also women. So we started having women that are a lot more higher educated. Today, I believe statistically there are more ladies that have PhDs and degrees than men here in the United States. Don't quote me on that. I could be incorrect, but it's certainly grown drastically than it has in the past. Because of that, though, you have all the old men that are running these companies. They're starting to retire or dying off. You could say that's a good thing. You could say that's a bad thing.
I definitely think it's a good thing because a lot of them have old ideologies, and
true.
that needs to go.
And I think a big thing too is not every company is being taken over by their child like it used to be. I think a lot of corporations are starting to wake up to the fact that just because you're related to someone doesn't mean you're an awesome leader.
There we go.
And as well as I think too, I give a lot more credit to the person. You can hate him, you can love him. You can at least say this about DJ Trump, that the guy took a loan from his father and made whatever you want of himself kind of thing. But in that aspect, I think we need to respect a lot of these ladies that are career women that are working their asses off because they're coming from nothing and they're making something of themselves. And this is my prediction, in the next 20 years, we're going to have a lot more women CEOs. You're going to start seeing more of a trend where you're going to have half and half on corporate boards and all that. I mean, you're already seeing like in news, like at our store that we work at, they have a magazine where they'll tell you about what's going on in the company. Recently, they were talking about leadership, and there were 4 ladies on the corporate board of executives versus probably in the past 5 years, only like 5.
That's really
less
good.
Than 5.
It makes me happy to see like women like coming up more and like having ownership over companies and stuff like that, and like being more independent. Because I feel like nowadays like women are waiting till their 30s to like have kids. And like right now, like with me, I want to become, financially stable before I bring a child into this world, before, I take that next step in my life. Like I want to establish myself, have a career going before I start that life with someone else or bring another life in.
It's the responsible thing to do. You don't want to bring someone in and struggle.
Exactly.
Like whatever you're able to bring in right now, just think about it this way. If you want to have a baby, think about it as in, if I was to have one right now and bring it into this world, what kind of life am I going to give it for them? Am I going to be able to afford to feed them at least? There's a lot of people out there, all they can do is take care of themselves, and there's even more out there that can't even do that.
Yeah. Having kids, like, I mean, it's all up to you. If you want to have a kid and you're not financially stable, do your thing. But I think, if my kid, Mommy, I need this, and that, I'm going to get this, and that, and I want to be able to do that for them, to provide.
Exactly. And I think going off of what you just said about ladies becoming more in the workforce and such with corporate executives, I think a big thing too, we can be very praiseworthy. A lot of people like to talk about the negatives of the internet. Big positive is you got a lot of young women doing small businesses on Etsy and such, or other websites where they are making things, they're providing services, and folks are able to buy it. And because of that, they're able to make a living. You got independent artists out there, men and women, that are able to sell their albums and such with cutting out the middleman. And I think that's an amazing thing. We need more small businesses out there to compete with these large mega corporations.
I think having a business is an amazing thing, because that's like growth. That's you establishing like generational wealth. And I feel like that's a big thing that we should be focusing on more, because like back in the day, like, I don't know how far back I want to go, but, a lot of times, rich families, pass that wealth down, and it goes down, down, down through generations, and it grows over time, because I think obviously like $1 million like in 1970 is like double the amount now. I don't know how the numbers were, something like that. But
I mean, you could go farther than that. I mean, generation wealth, like look at immigrant communities here in the United States. What I've noticed, especially historically, like I can't really talk too much about it because I didn't really grow up in an immigrant community. Like my family's half Polish, half French. But my dad grew up in the Polish neighborhood of Detroit. The one unique thing about that was people, and this is kind of like what happens with, for instance, the Lost Boys from Sudan. They came to America to get an education, and then they went back to benefit their community and to give what they could. And I think that's a big thing that happened here in the United States. You didn't just have people that needed translators for everything. You needed a lawyer, you like in the Polish neighborhood, there was a lawyer that was Polish, that spoke Polish, that could help you out. You wanted to go shopping, you can do that because everyone that you would encounter spoke Polish. Like my great-great-grandmother, she never learned English. She would watch old Dick the Bruiser wrestling and shout in Polish on her little TV, and that's how she spent her time. But she could manage to get through her whole life never learning another language.
Wow.
And
Insane.
I think going off of what you were saying, like with the generational wealth, I wouldn't just say it was generational, it was community wealth. Because of these folks willing to take on the hardship of learning this stuff and opening up businesses and taking the risks, they didn't just benefit their own family, they benefited their whole community.
Exactly. And I feel like we should focus more on that. Like the bigger picture is like, you're going to grow and the people around you, your community,
Yes.
wherever you are. Like if you're going to grow and everyone else has small business, like you're going to grow. Wealth like makes like, what is it called? I was about to say cities. Like your whatever area you're in, like obviously like the wealth in the area grows and stuff like that too.
Sorry, we kind of
We did go way off topic, but to get back on the topic,
next question.
why do men use women as placeholders? Like I've noticed, like I've been with guys who it's like, oh, we're together for this amount of time, and then it's like, I'm just here so you can find the girl that you really want to be with. Like why? Is it because of loneliness? Like you don't want to be alone, so it's like you want me to be here momentarily while you figure your things out.
I think a big part of that has to do with, and this is going against what I just said about the internet, a lot of it has to do with the internet. People are afraid of being alone. Think about the last time you didn't have your cell phone.
True.
What did you have to do? You either had to go out and find people to hang out with, or you had to be comfortable being alone. And there's a lot of people out there, they see photos on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat of all these folks going out there and having the time of their life, and they want that. And sometimes those folks just don't have that kind of drive, and they're confused as to why am I not happy. I think with guys, it's not only an ego thing, but it is that terrifying fear of admitting that, you know what, I don't really love this girl. As much as she is an amazing person in my life, I need to be honest with her and tell her, you know, I'm doing you wrong by being with you because here's the problems that I'm having. And sometimes people can work through that, mind you. Like I've met couples that are married and they both admit I love them, but I'm not attracted to them at all. And
sorry to cut you off real quick, but
good.
I saw something the other day. It was like, it said that like 70% of men don't actually marry the woman that they love. They marry the person that makes sense.
I think that's another thing going off of, I think we have expectations society-wise of what your compatibility should be. You should have amazing sex together. You should both be able to agree on everything. You should both be able to essentially roll in the dough. Like instead of being realistic and realizing, sorry to tell you this, if anyone's about to get engaged, marriage is work.
Yeah.
Like,
Takes two.
It takes two to tango. It takes you agreeing with whatever flaws you see in that person and being like, you know what, I can look past them. I can work with this and I love them still for it. I think we've confused a lot of things here in this country and society at large with what love really is. To a lot of people, love is as long as I feel like, oh, I can't wait to go home to them. That's love. That ain't love. Love is when you are sick, they're willing to come and take care of you and still pick up the slack where you leave off. Love is bigger thing, you sacrificing your time and whatever your needs are to make them happy. I'm sorry to tell you this, that's what love is. Like love, like you can say the traditional thing, Christians will say love is when you lay your life down for another. In reality, I wouldn't say it's as far as that. That's like extreme love, but it's definitely laying down your wants, your needs for that other person. And in that regards, I think there's a lot of men out there they can say that they didn't love the person they're married to or something like that, but I think they're kidding themselves too. I think they do see a lot of good in the person they're with. Otherwise, they wouldn't have hooked up with them.
Exactly.
Like, I remember you just said that they're it's what works kind of thing.
What makes sense?
I think there's a lot of people out there that they should get married to the person that makes sense in that aspect. Are they going to be everything you want? I don't think there's a single person out there like that. I think we've been lying to ourselves thanks to Disney that there's always the one.
There's that happily ever after.
Yes. They don't show you 3 a.m. Cinderella getting pissed off because the Prince Charming isn't home from the bar because he's an alcoholic drunk.
Yeah. That's a sad truth. I feel like with social media and movies, like it portrays like love to be something that it's not. Yeah. And they don't talk about what it actually is and the sacrifice and the work that goes into sustaining and keeping a relationship with someone. It's hard. It's hard because you got two different people who have to always come to some sort of compromise with each other on every situation, whether it's financial or it's cheating or where are we going to go eat or what do the kids need, this and that.
And I guess to go back to your question, why do men use women as a placeholder? I think a lot of it is the fear of loneliness, the fear that, you know what, it ain't going to work out with the other person. Like, I know a lot of guys that they are still friends with, like, their childhood friend, that she is this amazing person and all that, but they have absolutely 100%, they are terrified of actually asking her out and being with her because they don't want to ruin what they've had for all these years. You could go off of too, like, I know it's a joke on the internet right now, but tomboy girlfriends, like how they're like this awesome thing kind of thing.
Oh, she's a bro. She's one of us, right?
And I think there's a lot of people out, and the big joke I know a lot of times is there's guys out there that are like, yeah, but she isn't the one, like she isn't girly enough and all that. And it's like, who cares?
Exactly.
If you're attracted to that person, why are you denying yourself that? And why are you denying that person that you guys could have one of the most beautiful relationships ever? And instead, you are willing to let society dictate and tell you what is perfect. I know people that one of Christina's cousins, she is a punk rocker. Like, I'm talking, she has shaved heads, like on both sides, blue.
She got like a mohawk.
Oh yeah. Blue hair, tattoos, and her husband have been together now for 25 years. You can make it work.
Yes, you can. And I've been in those, like,
fuck the free world, fuck society.
Yeah, fuck what they think. I've definitely had those, like, bro relationships where it's like I have a really close guy best friend, and it's like, yeah, like, we have a great relationship, but, like, in my head, like, I don't see it working out. Like, yeah, we're like, it's because we're so close and we know so much about each other. It's like, and I don't see you in that way. I have so much love for you, but I know it wouldn't work. There are those times, but then exactly. But then there are those times where it's like these people are meant to be together.
And I think a lot of it too is in society. Like we talked about, like the whole happy ever after. What is it always? It's always these two young people that first met kind of thing, and they just clicked. That's not always the case. Like, I'm embarrassed to admit it. When I first met my fiance, her and I hardly talked. I mean, like, I knew of her from high school. Then we met years later in college. Her twin sister is the one I thought was into me. So I talked with her constantly and then started to slowly realize she's not into me that much. Then my fiance, she came up and started talking to me a little bit. And I'm like, you know what? We kind of connect. And so I was like, hey.
How does that work, though? Like, did the other twin know that, like...
So we joke all the time it. Story time. Liz, if you're out there, thank you so much. You're the most wonderful girl to put the most wonderful woman in my life. She straight up told me that, I'm sorry, I just don't see you that way, but my twin sister thinks you're amazing.
Aww.
Would you mind talking with her? And that right there, I'm like, you know what? Sure. What do I have to lose? If it works out, it works out.
Exactly.
If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's worked. And thank God it's worked. Like,
that's good.
And I'm not saying we have the cookie cutter, perfect, happily ever after Disney relationship. That is not the case at all. We both work at it every day. I mean, we just went to like a marriage prep class for my church. And one of the big things that came out that was bothering her was I get up after her and I don't make the bed. Shocker. You know, like you're with someone for so long, you start taking them for granted a little bit, which is what I was doing. So, you know what? It caused me to back up and realize I got to see what I can do to make her day more easier.
Did you start making the bed?
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
I make it like I'm in the Army.
See, now that's compromise. What else was I was about to go into something else.
To answer your question, though, do I think all guys use some girls as placeholders? I think it's very situational. There's some guys out there that are too scared to really admit what they want, and then there's some girls out there that are perfectly happy with what they got. I know someone right now, she is not attracted to the guy at all. He is only with her because it's like his first love kind of thing, and I don't see the relationship lasting, but the two of them are too afraid to admit it.
Well, it's sad when, like, because I feel like, you know, you're when you're friends with people, they talk about the relationships and stuff like that, and you give them your best advice. But when they don't follow it, it's like, bro, why did you ask me in the first place if you're not going to do what I just said? And they just keep doing the same situation over and over again. I'm like, all right, like, your storyline is starting to get a little bit boring.
Like, I got a guy friend that he's been with her for years now, and he still hasn't figured out why she doesn't want to have sex with him, why she doesn't want to really spend time with him. And it's like, well, have you asked her that? Yeah. And I'm like, well, what kind of answers does she give you? And he's like, well, she says how she's always tired from work and she has to do like all these chores to take care of. And I'm like, bingo, right there. You want to have sex with her? You want to look sexy? Fuck the lingerie.
Yeah.
Go to the goddamn dishwasher and start taking the stuff out.
Do the
start
damn
putting
dishes.
it back in. Start vacuuming. You brought 2 cats into this relationship and you don't once clean the litter box. That's an issue.
That's a problem. Don't bring around animals if you're not going to clean up after them. That's wrong, especially if they're yours.
So that's Steve's advice. You want to look sexy, start doing what needs to be done.
Exactly. I agree with that 100%. Now, back onto our main topic.
All right.
Misogyny, masculinity versus femininity. I feel like there's this weird kind of, people associate dominance with men and submissiveness with women. And I just don't agree with that anymore. It is interchangeable. A woman can be dominant.
Oh, yeah.
A man can be submissive. And I think it's all about, like, I mean, maybe, like, it depends on which avenue we're talking about. Obviously, sexual, like, in the workplace, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like men feel like they equate, okay, well, if she is dominant, then she's masculine, then she's a man. Yeah.
It turns into the whole, like, tomboy dynamic of what people are, like, afraid of kind of thing with women. And I would say everyone wants, like, at least 20 years ago, everyone wanted the Victoria's Secret, pencil thin, but still somehow has boobs and ass kind of girl. Instead of looking at it as, you know, there are amazing women out there that I have in my life and I just don't want to spend time with them. Why is that? But when it comes to domination as a masculine trait, I think that's kind of strange when you really think about it. For the last, humans have been around for like 50,000 years, depending on who you talk them to. And you look at like hunter-gatherer societies, they have certain traits in all of them that are kind of unique. Neither, like, I remember reading about a group of people that have been around in South Africa for like the last 2,000 years. They've been doing it the exact same way. The men hunt. Why is that? Because the ladies are, if they get injured or die, they have no way of breastfeeding their child. That's the only reason why they have that dynamic. But in their religious beliefs and spiritual beliefs, men and women are both equal. So it makes me wonder, how did we get to that point in society that...
Well, you know, going back there was a certain point in time where men and women weren't equal. And I feel like we're kind of we still are fighting that battle of equality when it comes to race and the sexes. Women didn't get the right to vote till what?
1970s?
20? Was it 20?
Yeah, it was
all right, I'm a little off, guys. I'm sorry.
But they didn't have a lot of, I would say, they got the right to vote, but it's kind of, you can talk about it in a more historical context. Another similar situation, when Abraham Lincoln freed a lot of the slaves here in America, he had all these plans to help build their community so they weren't going to be in dirt poverty when they got out of bondage. What ended up happening, he got shot, and the next guy that went into office didn't enact anything he did. Instead, they threw books at the problem and essentially said, deal with it yourself, you got this, which what ended up happening, a lot of folks returned to the plantations they were just freed from.
And there was some slaves that didn't even know that the Emancipation Proclamation was even a thing, and there was some slaves who were still in slavery till like the early, not early, the late like 19th century, like 70s, 80s. Like there's a lot of like stuff historically that they don't talk about, and I don't really want to dive into that on this episode because we can go in deep.
Oh yeah.
But
so going off of that, I think women got the right to vote on paper, but they didn't have the same kind of rights. Like they got the right to vote, they got the right to their own property, all that very misogynistic kind of laws that were against them back in the day started going away. But I don't think it really exploded till the 60s and 70s where, hell, we can finally be in the workplace. A woman can be a doctor. A woman could be an astronaut. A woman could serve in the military. Like, we're starting to get to a point here where I would say there's a lot more equality. Mind you, there's still aspects that still linger. I mean, obviously, recently we got the draft for women are now having to sign up for it. But even still, like I'm being told when I go to work that there are some people that are that can't lift as much, which I think is totally unfair for those that can. And 9 times out of 10, I'm being told because they're a girl, you shouldn't expect them to lift as much, which I think is total bullshit.
Yeah, you see me checking those pallets. I'm like,
lift
them in the back.
There's a lot of other ladies that are very athletic at work that are being told they have to lift that much. How is that fair to them?
Yeah.
They're the ones taking on it. They're the ones making the same amount of money as the other ones.
Exactly.
It's not fair for them.
No, not at all. Shoot, my train of thought literally just went left. What was I about to say? We can cut this part out because I'm trying to think here.
I need a break anyways. Water.
It works. They're banging out this room.
I cannot explain to you guys how unfortunate this is. You would never guess where exactly they are working right now.
Let me guess right above us.
Right here.
Of course.
And all week, it's been left side of the building, back side of the building, and then today, right now, they're right here. So I do want to say, first and foremost, I do apologize because I don't think there's any way around it. You're gonna hear it from like in the show, and like I'm sorry. It's not going to happen again. They should be done like soon. But Shay, I'm probably going to have you just record like a little pre-message when you're done. Just be like, hey, listen, like there's renovations going on in our studio. I'm so sorry. So try your best to, if you do hear any banging or anything, try your best to ignore it, as the message we are sending out today is so much more important than the distracting banging. So, but yeah, don't sweat it and it'll be fine.
Okay. Good.
Oh, we were talking about incels, weren't we?
We were talking about incels.
Is that where we left off?
There's something like specific that I wanted to say.
I keep going on a tangent.
It's okay. No, it's good. It's good. That's what I wanted you to do because I knew you would.
All right.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. Okay, so, with coming, like equality and stuff like that, when it comes to like the physical, some men feel like, I feel like this is where like the toxic masculinity part comes in, that, okay, well, if women want equal rights, then I have the rights to put my hand on a woman. I'm like, that's not what that means.
Yeah.
I definitely don't think a woman should put their hands on a man. I don't think a man should put their hands on a woman. Like, but I've seen videos where like women have, gone out and attacked a man on purpose to antagonize him, to get him to hit her. And I'm just like, dude, like, why? Why do you do these types of things?
Well, I remember too, recently I saw that TikTok star, like not talking about physical abuse, but she's going up to guys and grinding up against them, spreading her legs in front of them. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why? Just because you're a lady, you can do that? Yeah. I mean, that ain't fair to him. That ain't, like, you're pushing all the progress that people have made for the last, 200 years in this country, 300 if you want to go even farther. You're taking all that progress and you're just throwing it out the window. Why? Because you're a lady?
It's not right at all. in the slightest bit. Because I'm like, reverse that. If it was a grown man rubbing his crotch on women,
Yeah.
he would be dead.
Oh, yeah.
Shot dead in the streets.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a thing too. I mean, statistically, I know some like crime statistics can be screwed at times. I think one of them was that women don't get as heavy of crime, jail time as men for similar crimes. But I think a big problem with that is you get issues where if the guy is like being hit and all that, what's he gonna do? If he doesn't hit her back and just keeps taking it, everyone's gonna call him a pussy.
Yeah.
If he does hit her back, he is a misogynistic asshole who should go to jail.
Yeah.
If he calls the cops, they're just gonna laugh at him.
Like,
So
why didn't you just take the hit, bro? Like, why didn't you just let her hit you?
So it becomes one of those things where it's like, and mind you, when it comes to defending yourself, if you're a man or a woman, I'm not going to advocate that you kick the shit out of someone. But if all they're doing is pushing you, like that's a situation where you can walk away from.
Yeah.
If they start hitting you, then take the control of the situation. Like either grab them and prevent them from hitting you, or do something. If they're trying to kill you, then by all means defend yourself.
Yeah.
Like I don't care if they're
At that
man,
point,
woman,
it's
anything
like
in between.
Life or death.
That's your life. Like that's what I always told Christine. I'm like, I don't care if the other person has a family or what. They're trying to kill you. Like what happens when we have kids? You're gonna tell our kids that they can't have a mom because someone decided to be crazy.
Right.
So
Like, this is why I carry weapons on me. I think you have in today's society, because people are just crazy. Like I think last week a Kroger got shot up.
Something like that.
Like what? You can't even go grocery shopping anymore.
No, it's nuts. And I think a big problem is we got a huge mental health problem here in the United States. But I think too, men, we're kind of taught to swallow your feelings, and just kind of ignore them. And it gets to the point where you do that enough, you're going to start having issues in your head. You need to have an outlet.
Yeah, therapy. To tap into what you just said, talk concerning mental health, because it is nearing the end of Mental Health Awareness Month, which is September. That is a sad truth for men, that they're told to hold back their feelings, don't cry, be a man, suck it up, blah, 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 which is really messed up, because if you think about it, we're humans, we have emotions, and we are supposed to express those emotions. So when you're telling a man, starting from a boy, growing into a man from a young age, to suppress your emotions, what kind of person do you think that's shaping him to be mentally?
Exactly.
Like he's not going to cry out for help because you told him not to.
Mind you, I think there's times, like obviously when you're on the front line, you got to, like in the military kind of thing, and you're being shot at, obviously you can't react emotionally. You got to be able to handle yourself in composure. But when you get home, when you're finally done with that, I think we push it aside so much that there's a lot of people out there that, I don't care what political party you were, we sent all these people over to the Middle East. They got messed up in the head, and we did absolutely nothing for them when they came back. I think that's wrong, and I think that's a big thing to do with how we value society. As a guy, kind of growing up, like going off of what you were saying about how you have to swallow your emotions, kind of goes further with that too. Like how you're saying about how you can't have any emotions. You're kind of taught to be disposable, at least back when we were growing up. When you think about it, you're signing up for the draft, so only men can go to war kind of thing. And as well as like look at cruise ships and all that, who are the first to leave? Men. They're the first ones to be told, women and children first, then men get off kind of thing. I think we kind of live in a society where that is still pushed in little ways. I'm not saying it's pushed to a point where it's systemically a problem, but I would say that you get instances where it's like we were talking about women hitting a guy. Why can't you take it? Like, is she really hurting you? Come on, you're going to tell me that little girl hit you? And
like, man up.
Yeah. So I would say that's a form of toxic masculinity that really affects guys, where we don't know really how to handle certain situations, especially now you have the anxiety of you're always on camera. So it's like, well, what do I say? What do I do? If I do anything wrong, because I get so fed up with it, I'm going to be screwed. Yeah. So
it's a sad thing, because obviously, like with suppressing emotions, that's going to play into your mental health as a man. Well, I mean, with anyone who suppresses emotions like that. You know, I've been around men or been in relationships with men who were emotionally just dead.
Yeah.
And, you know, me being the person I am, I would always try to break them out of that shell, but it is so hard. And it's like they're scared because, you know, they're trying to feel something that they've been told to never feel.
Exactly. And the moment you start not being a man in society's eyes kind of thing, I mean, you're growing up, like for millennials, we grew up around like the turn of the 2000s and all that. All the movies where you got to be like this masculine macho man in order to get the girl, in order to have a good career, in order to have the best out of life. The moment you're not doing that, what's the problem? Like, how are you not being what you were supposed to be? Like, obviously there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
So, and I think in that regards, you get a lot of issues mental health wise. And I think it's so bad here in this country that it's making it hard for policing. It's making it hard for actually creating change amongst communities. I think a big issue is the divorce rate and all that is through the roof. I mean, I
think this pandemic has just like really shown us what the mental state of this country is at.
Exactly. I mean, going to marriage prep, the very first thing they told us, you're like, well, we just want to let you know we're here to try to help you work out your problems. But just to give you the statistic, it's a coin flip whether or not your marriage will last. 50% divorce rate here in America.
Wow. When did it become 50?
I think it started around the turn of the 2010s. It could be wrong. It could have been sooner or it could have been later. But anyways, being told that and thinking about how many single mothers are out there having to raise their kids and such, I think that has, like, the mental health, especially for men, we're being told that there's no outlets for you. So you start going into, let's think about what you go into. You go into drugs, you go into drinking, gambling, you get addicted to your phone to the point where, like, we see it all the time at work. You got kids that are running rampant and their parents are too focused on their phones
to do anything. They're jumping out the carts and pushing stuff, and
they will walk away from the cart with their kid in it and the kid will stand up in it. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard what sounds like a watermelon hitting the floor, and that's some little kid's head. That is not good, folks. Please set down your phone just for at least
pay attention to your kids in the store. Like, goodness.
At least till your kids go to bed. Like, honestly, like, I get it. Some people, they have businesses to run. They have to be on the phone. Grandma's in the hospital. But that shouldn't be a 24/7 thing.
Exactly. So. Especially if you got a little one with you. Like, they're going to be all over the place. Like, you got to keep an eye on that one.
And I guess going back to it, especially for, like, I remember being told by my dad, he's like, how do you want your kids to remember you? And I'm like, well, I want them to at least have a good memory of me. And he's like, think that I was there for them. And he's like, good. Now be really picky with who you choose to get married and who you have kids with. Because if you aren't, you're not going to be in the picture as much. And they're not going to have a great view of you.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
sad.
a scary thing, especially with, you know, saying it's a 50-50 coin flip. Jeez, can't even talk. You have kids with someone, you are attached to that person for the next 18 years. Plus, you know, whatever, like, holiday party, you know, your kids grow up, they have kids, and you're always going to be a part of that person's life no matter what.
Exactly.
So choose wisely. It's a very scary thing.
So going back to it, I think a big problem is, too, especially now, we got a huge problem in our generation of people not growing up with their dads.
Yeah.
I can say I remember it wasn't too prevalent when we were growing up in the beginning. And then as I got into, like, middle school, high school, I had more and more friends whose parents got divorced.
Yep.
And now my brother is, like, I was one of the 5 people in a bunch of my classes that actually still had both parents in the household active in their life. And I think as a society, we got to realize this is screwing with our kids.
It is.
Mental health is rising. They don't feel like they have 2 parents to go to about problems. Like, I remember growing up, there were things that obviously that, like, I would go to my mom for, but there was a lot of stuff, like, hormone wise for guys that I felt
You
more
need a
comfortable
father there
talking
for.
to my dad too. Yeah. So I think we just gotta figure out what are we doing when it comes to raising our kids, because this is the next generation.
Yeah.
And I think a big thing because of it is we're making it into a situation where men and women are being demonized as the evil parent. And now we are getting a bigger and bigger group of incels and I don't know if there's a real word for it, but you got the opposite of an incel when it comes to women, of women hating men.
They literally like hate men. Like they think that we don't need them to survive. I'm like, well, I mean, you do. That's how children are made.
Sorry, honey, there's no society test tube thing yet.
Yeah, not yet. That's not real yet.
Out.
But it is. I feel like it all comes down to communication, because I feel like, honestly, anything can really be solved.
Yeah.
It's just being honest and communicating that to your spouse or whoever you're with, because then you can have an understanding. Like, if you're doing sneaky stuff behind the scenes, blah, 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 like, it's going to end bad.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to come out regardless if you want it to or not.
Mm-hmm. And the key is, too, finding out, like, your partner's love language.
Yeah.
Like, there's times where, obviously, they don't want you just to talk. They want, action.
Yeah.
Words
Actions
can only
speak
go
louder
so
than
far.
words.
Yes. Like, if your kid, if your boyfriend is telling you, hey, I just wish that you would get off your phone because I would like to just talk with you, go for a walk, something, then okay, maybe that's his key of being like, I have something important to tell you that I want to talk to you about. And vice versa. If your lady is super busy, whether it is at work or something, is there something you can do to lighten the load for her? And then you can open the channels for communication.
Exactly.
That's the thing too with our generation being millennials, we got to figure out time management so much more than past generations.
It's hard. But with this generation, I feel like we have a lot of people who are, they're in the streets. They're for the streets. They don't want a relationship. They just want to fuck around. And that's how we have a lot of single mothers, because people are just having sex with anybody and not using protection, got a kid.
Yep. And now for 18 years, I have to somehow not only be a mother to them, but also somehow a father. And we're getting to a point, too, we're starting to run out of parents when you think about it, because back in our generation, at least if you're a single parent, most likely you had your own parents to rely back on. If your kid now is a single parent, they only have you. So
and sometimes you only have that one parent.
Exactly.
So what's going to happen when they're gone?
Exactly. So it's turning into, I think, a real crisis that as a society, we need women and we need men to come together.
Yes.
There's so much of this, and I know it's like in the title of the episode, masculinity versus femininity, but I think we need to start getting rid of that and coming into reality.
Yes, I like that. Get rid of masculinity, femininity, and come into reality and actually deal with the real problems and situations. Like that was good.
I remember it's one of those things too where you start wondering, well, what is masculinity? What is femininity? I don't think there is a 100% answer to that. Like, I think obviously there's some people that are going to be more attracted if you look a certain way, that you're going to pull in those kinds of people. I think there's going to be people that want you to start doing certain things more. But for instance, I don't care that Harry Styles decided to, Vogue magazine?
Yeah, he wore like
wear
a dress.
Like, I'm sure there's girls out there that are into them. Girls that aren't into him.
I just want to say this. Young Thug did it first before Harry did. So stop hyping up Harry. Young Thug did it first.
Like, Young Thug, and I think I can't remember his first name, Will Smith's son.
Jaden. He started rocking skirts and stuff like that.
And I'm like, there's girls out there that are going to be into that. There's guys out there that are into that. I don't really care. If you have a problem with it, go look for your mate somewhere else.
Exactly. There's somebody for everyone. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, Steve.
No
I
problem.
appreciate it. The other 3 who didn't come, you'll be dealt with. But yeah, this wraps up this first episode of Overly Misguided. We are now on Spotify and Apple Music, so go ahead and listen to us over there. And yeah,